2023 brought a lot of interesting weather to the state of Florida. The main event of the year being Hurricane Idalia, which impacted much of northern Florida on August 30th of this year. However, Florida was also prone to other forms of extreme weather, such as excessive heat, flooding, and even a few tornadoes. That last one is what I'm wanting to talk about today. With 2023 coming to a close, I wanted to look back and see when and where significant tornadoes impacted the state. To do this, I will be referencing the TC Palm Tornado Archive website. I will leave a link to the website in the description down below if you would like to research tornadoes further. I have used this tool before in other videos, such as my Severely Overlooked series, and it's very insightful. With all of that out of the way, let's see how tornadoes impacted the state of Florida in 2023. Let's take a look at some stats for this year. According to the Tornado Archive, Florida saw 48 tornadoes throughout 2023. This is slightly above the previous 10-year average of about 44 tornadoes a year. Thankfully, there were no fatalities due to tornadoes in our state this year, only one injury. In total, TC Palm estimates that tornadoes dealt around $9,260,000 in property damage this year. And you're going to be pretty surprised to hear what tornado caused the majority of that property damage cost, so stay tuned for that. In terms of the enhanced Fujita scale, Florida saw 7 EF2s, 9 EF1s, and 32 EF0s. To begin our exploration of 2023 tornadoes, I would like to go over how tornadoes impacted the first coast region of Florida this year. 3 tornadoes impacted our region this year, 2 of those being in Clay County and 1 of them being in St. Johns County. First off, there was a pair of tornadoes reported on the afternoon of September 26, 2023. We actually did a First Coast storm tracking episode on this day, but I was unaware of any tornado reports at the time. The IEM archive returns no instances of tornado warnings or severe thunderstorm warnings for Clay County either, and that is likely because these were weak, sneaky little tornadoes. The first of these tornadoes was reported at 3:40 p.m. on the outskirts of Lake Asbury, Florida. Reportedly, the tornado was a landspout, or a type of tornado that forms from the ground upwards. These are somewhat common among Florida tornadoes, and often end up being on the weaker side of things. I cannot find any specific wind speed estimate on this tornado other than it being an EF0. No structural damage occurred, and it did little more than just cause a mess. While we might not have gotten footage, it turns out that someone else did. On radar, you can see that not much was occurring at the time of the tornado report. In fact, it looks like a lot more active weather is happening to the west of the report site. However, there is one noticeable feature on radar that may have assisted in tornado development. During the first half of the radar scan, you can see a line of what looks to be light rain moving to the southwest. This is actually an outflow boundary from a previous storm. These strong areas of wind and cold air can help displace warm pockets of air on the ground, causing it to rise into the cooler atmosphere and become unstable. When this lifting motion occurs, sometimes the air rises in a cylindrical motion. This is one way landspouts can form. At the time of the report, velocity radar does not show any defined rotation, but that makes sense for landspouts. Since much of the rotation is focused closer to the ground level, the radar does not detect this spin. The radar is about 30 miles away from the report site, which means the beam is around 2,000 feet off the ground. The rotation from this landspout likely wasn't stretching more than a few hundred feet into the air at best by the looks of the video. Overall, a relatively inconsequential tornado, but a tornado in my hometown nonetheless. This next tornado is a bit less interesting. Just like the Lake Asbury tornado, the one that occurred in Green Cove Springs on September 26 was also reported to be a landspout, and was also rated an EF0. Unfortunately, I cannot find any footage or videos of this storm. Looking at radar, it was much of the same story as the last tornado. Likely, this was just another brief spin-up with air being lifted up by a passing boundary, or possibly brought on by the cell merger seen on the reflectivity scans shown on the screen now. No structural damage was reported with this tornado. I saved this one for last because the narrative around this tornado is both interesting and slightly confusing. According to TC Palm, on the evening of September 11, 2023, yet another landspout tornado impacted the small town of Molasses Junction in Florida. This tornado damaged a barn stable and a porta potty, equating to $7.5 million in damages. This makes this dinky little EF0 landspout the costliest tornado Florida saw in 2023 by a landslide, and it's not even close. I have no clue how that works. The confusing part is trying to find footage and evidence of this tornado's existence. You'd think if it caused $7.5 million in damages, I should be able to find some video or images of said damage, right? Nope. The report says images were shared of the tornado, but none of that is linked in the reports themselves. The Storm Prediction Center archive of severe reports for September 11th doesn't list any tornado for St. Johns County, rather it chalks the damage up to thunderstorm wind gust damage. But this report here from NOAA does indicate that there was a tornado. So, was it a tornado or was it severe thunderstorm winds? That I can't say. Looking at radar, it really doesn't help. Let's move on to some more impressive tornadoes. On April 30th, 2023, a high-end EF1 tornado hit Charlotte County in southwestern Florida. The tornado hit a few miles to the northwest of the town of LaBelle at around 6:30 in the morning. A metal barn was destroyed, along with a few snapped telephone poles being reported. Despite the storm being over 70 miles away from the radar was still able to detect a powerful rotation within the storm. Beginning at around 6:30 a.m., a couplet can be seen on radar. A couplet is when two areas of opposing wind meet and even cross over with each other on velocity radar display. This is likely an indication of a tornado and can be seen on velocity radar in this instance for around 30 minutes. The National Weather Service estimates that the tornado had sustained winds of 110 miles per hour, and it was reportedly on the ground for 4.621 miles. This local news station claims you can clearly see the debris ball on their radar, but I have a feeling they may have just been trying to hype themselves up. They don't provide this footage, and on RadarScope, there's no noticeable debris ball during the time the tornado was reported to be on the ground. It was likely way too far away from any National Weather Service radar to see. Let's get into the EF2 tornadoes. The first EF2 tornado of the year happened very close to the start of 2023, on the 22nd of January. This tornado hit a small housing subdivision named Driftwood Estates in southern Walton County. Once again, with this tornado hitting early in the morning, no footage seems to exist of the funnel. As we get into the stronger tornadoes of this year, you will come to find that many of them have much more clearly defined couplets on velocity radar. Sometimes you may even see the infamous hook echo on the regular reflectivity. When it comes to the Walton County EF2, we begin to see differing bands of wind over the neighboring bay at around 6:08 a.m. At 6:14 a.m., the waterspout was on the doorstep of the western Driftwood Estates area. In less than a minute, it tore across the miniature peninsula. Admittedly, the rotation signature only grows more impressive as the storm continues back out over the bay. However, no tornado was reported to have been on the ground once the storm re-emerged onto land at around 6:30 in the morning. For our next EF2 tornado, we'll be taking a trip over to Hosford, Florida. On the afternoon of April 27, 2023, a major springtime storm system hit the Florida Panhandle. This spawned 7 different tornadoes, with the strongest being an EF2, which had peak wind speeds estimated to reach 125 miles per hour. And this tornado was quite the beast, reaching upwards of half a mile wide at times. This storm was around 30 miles to the west of the Tallahassee radar at the time this radar loop was recorded. And with that means we have some really high quality radar data. The official National Weather Service report states that the tornado touched down at 3:54 p.m. local time, and at just that time on radar we see a hook echo developing. A hook echo is a radar feature that is often seen with tornadoes. This feature lasts for around 20 minutes before the storm seems to lose its strength. Many of the tornadoes we have looked over so far today occurred in relatively rural areas, towns or communities with less than a few thousand people to their names, though these next 2 tornadoes will break that streak, unfortunately. On the afternoon of April 29, 2023, a strong supercellular thunderstorm formed due to a cell merger along Interstate 95 near the Palm Beach area. The tornado specifically impacted Palm Beach Gardens, which has a population of around 60,000 people. The greater Palm Beach area overall, though, is home to upwards of 180,000 people. The storm was located over 80 miles from the 2 nearest radars at the time, so the radar data is a bit less clear for this tornado than previous examples. However, while it is not a tight couplet, rotation can definitely be seen within the storm. The tornado would track for around 2.5 miles, lasting around 11 minutes. The tornado reached maximum estimated wind speeds of 130 miles per hour at its peak, making it the strongest tornado by wind speed to occur in Florida for the 2023 season. Our next tornado brings us all the way to the western tip of the Florida Panhandle, over to the coastal city of Pensacola, which is home to around 54,000 residents. On the evening of June 15, 2023, an EF2 tornado touched down in West Pensacola before crossing the nearby bay. A few homes that were under construction had their roofs and top floors completely ripped off, and boats were flung dozens of feet. The tornado had maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour, was on the ground for around 9 miles, and had a maximum path width of around 450 yards. Unfortunately, Pensacola had more severe weather on their plate that night. The same storm system managed to dump upwards of 9 inches of rain in some areas of the city as well. And as you can see on radar, these storms just kept training over the same areas, really running up those rainfall totals. This storm was part of a much bigger severe weather outbreak sequence that was occurring in the middle of June this year. On June 15th alone, the Storm Prediction Center received nearly 400 reports of severe weather across the country. The last 2 notable tornadoes for the year occurred during the same tornado outbreak. During the overnight hours of October 11th, leading into the morning of October 12th, 2023, a large surface low worked its way across the Florida peninsula. This helped create a setup that was very conducive for the development of rotating supercells. The main two of interest occurred within 30 minutes of each other. First off, we go down to Clearwater Beach, where a tornadic waterspout seems to have come ashore. The storm has a very well-defined hook on reflectivity radar, along with a powerful couplet on velocity radar. The Clearwater Beach tornado was on the ground for only about 8 minutes, covering 5 miles in that time. Maximum sustained winds were estimated to have reached 115 miles per hour, making it an EF2 tornado. For our last tornado, we have to move a bit more to the north up to Citrus County. Despite the storm being at least 70 miles away from any radar site when this radar loop was recorded, a very powerful couplet is still seen on velocity radar. This rotation does seem to fall apart as it reaches land, but remember, we are far away from the radar. Sometimes the radar doesn't show the full picture, and it didn't here. Starting at 2:08 a.m., a powerful EF2 tornado began to tear across Citrus County, impacting the towns of Paradise Park and Crystal River. The tornado was on the ground for only 11 minutes, covering 5.5 miles in that time. Shockingly, neither of these powerful nighttime tornadoes caused any injuries or deaths. And there you have it, some notable tornadoes from around the state of Florida in 2023. From storms that hit close to home to ones that brought us to the furthest reaches of the state away from home, it's been extremely interesting to look back on just some of the tornadoes that impacted Florida throughout 2023. I can't wait to see what kind of severe weather Mother Nature offers up to us in 2024. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. Have a good day, and I hope to see you again soon.